further ado, please welcome to the stage, Sébastien Benard.
Hey, thank you, Alexei, for introducing me. And again, as was mentioning, thanks a lot to everyone from Roguelike Celebration for the organization, which is tremendous, honestly. Today my goal is to talk to you about some things that I've been doing for quite a few years now, a few things that I did learn along the way of doing not only roguelikes, but roguelites and similar type of games, but a few things that I did learn on how to make such project manageable and not going to like overscope like too quickly. So let's get started. So a few things first to mention that's probably important. You certainly have noticed that I'm French, so that means my accent and my words and vocabulary can be sometimes a bit weird. So please forgive me for that, and I really hope that you will be able to still follow my lead here. Also, being French is also means that I do speak kind of quickly. I will try to keep things slow as much as possible. But if you, I'm not sure there's replay, but yeah, I will try to just stay slow. Second thing, I have a cat. I'm currently at home, so I have a cat somewhere. Right now he's sleeping, so it should be okay, but he might spawn randomly during the event. So if that does happen, sorry about that. He's nice. And yeah, a very, very important third thing is everything I'm about to talk about is really just my opinion and just based on my own experience of doing things. Obviously, I've not done everything, so it's really just a way for me to do things. I'm just trying to share this back with the community. So take it with a pinch of salt if needed. That's really just me talking about past experience. Okay, so yeah, a little bit of context about me first. So my name is Sébastien Benard. Most people do know me by the nickname of deepnight. It's really a very bad nickname I did pick like 25 years ago. When I needed a website and domain name, I picked deepnight.net, and that remained, and that's now my nickname. Not super proud of it. Most people do confuse it with knight, like the guy with the sword, but that's okay. Also, I did work at Motion Twin for 18 years now. Yeah, about 18 years. I used to be part of the founders and associate, and started as a developer, then kind of evolved. It's a anarcho-syndicalist company, so it's evolving this type of company is kind of special. But I started as a developer, then I switched to game design, and when I left the company, I was really in between development and game design. Yeah, don't know those second lines. It's a thing. So in this company, before making the games that we were mostly known for, Dead Cells, we actually were producing free-to-play games. We were creating free-to-play games on our own. We were kind of lucky because in France, we were sort of the early adopters of free-to-play in video games. It used to be something nice. I mean, free-to-play used to be something really nice and very interesting in many ways. It was a very nice way to allow people to play for free and to pay only if they really wanted to invest a bit in the game. So that was really nice in theory. And I've been doing that for 15 years. That means that I do know a few things about dark patterns, obviously, but dark patterns is a very bad word also for just saying I kind of understand people's psychology and the way human beings behave in specific situations, which is kind of useful when you're making roguelike in general. I mean, because it allows me to have some understanding of player frustration when something should be added to make another run, to make something interesting. So it's really understanding that was kind of useful to me. And yeah, obviously I did work on Dead Cells. It's hard to put a title on that. I was director, lead dev, and a game designer. So basically, I was in charge of every gameplay system in this game. So it could be particle effect, balancing, spawning, level design, and a few things. We are a very small team. We'll talk about that later, but we are a very small team. So many people were involved in many different things. Yeah, I do also participate lots of game jams. That's something I didn't have time in the recent 2 years, I think, the last 2 years, but I really love to participate game jams. It's really a very interesting way for me to innovate, to test ideas, and to think without the constraint of making an actual product in some way. It's again not such a bad word in my opinion, but it's really just a good way for me to make something without thinking about any kind of success idea or whatever. So I do love doing that. Mostly Ludum Dare and a bit of GMTK for the context. So yeah, I left the company Motion Twin in 2020. I decided to go alone, even though it was kind of dangerous out there. But I decided to make my own company. So I just picked Deep Night Games because that made sense. Still don't like the name, but yeah, people do know me using that name, so I will just stick with it. So I made this company, Deep Night Games. And that also means that I'm mostly alone doing that. So it's not exactly solo, because I do work with people from time to time, musicians, artists, people just helping me in different topics, marketing also, stuff like that. But most of the time, my day-to-day job is really a solo dev. I do really believe in open source in general. It's not for me just a nice thing to say, like it's cool to say open source is nice, but really pretty much all my tool set is open source, except this one, the slides. The slides are using Google Slide, but that's the only exception. But everything else is really open source. I did develop a few things. LDTK is the biggest one. LDTK stands for Level Designer Toolkit. It's a level editor. It's my dream level editor. That is something I do use every single day to make my current games, my past and current game. And also use the Axe language, which is like a fully open source language. And also maintain GameBase, which is some kind of very lightweight framework to make video games using Axe and LDTK. So it's really just a small code base to get started into making games with these tools. Something you should know about me, very important to me, game feel is key. I really think I'm more in the Blizzard school. I mean, when Blizzard was cool a few years before, when Blizzard was doing games and making sure that they are not exactly original, but the quality and the game feel, the UI, UX, everything is really carefully thought. That's something that for me is really important. That's the way I design my game in general. I really try, I'm not exactly control freak, but I really like things to be under control and to give a proper experience to players. Also, being alone, I really love, that's a good thing, being alone. I love to optimize my production time versus my efficiency. I will talk much more about that. That's really pretty much the point of this talk. I will talk about that a little bit later, but that's optimizing my time versus the impact of my time on the game, for example, or a specific feature or system. And a good example of that is LDTK, my level editor. As you can see, it's really, it's a rule-based level editor. It's a 2D level editor. And it's actually using lots of procedural ideas to dynamically paint the level as you draw things. So you basically just say, this is a collision, this is water, and everything else is drawn using rules that will save you quite a lot of time, actually not placing every single grass or corner of collision or something. The whole tool, LDTK, is really based on that. I will also talk about that a little bit after. So let's get started. Let's talk about Dead Cells. Dead Cells was really built on our free-to-play era at Motion Twin. It was built at a time where Motion Twin was not in a great shape. We were making free-to-play web games back to 2016, I think. And as you know, we didn't do mobile that much. We did 2 mobile games and didn't go really well. But it was for us the decline of the company. We were struggling having our old free-to-play web games paying the bills, and we needed to switch to something different. We did not want to go mobile, so the only other way was to go PC and to make like a Steam game maybe and get our hands on that. So we had this very old project which was called Rally at the beginning. Then it actually was kind of cancelled or put in the fridge. Put in the fridge. It was renamed Horde Zero. It was a sequel to one of our web games, Horde. And it actually turned into Dead Cells. That's a long way around, because at the beginning it was really a top-down action game with tower defense element. It switched to a platformer game on mobile with free-to-play and multiplayer and tower defense element. Then it turned into Dead Cells. That's a long stretch, as you can see. But that's a very old project for me at Motion Twin. The general idea when we really started those upper right image, the Dead Cells part, was to say Dead Cells was Castlevania that you can play again and again. We really loved Castlevania, Dawn of Sorrow especially, and we really wanted to try to make something that was replayable. And the second thing that we really quickly decided that we have to stick to one thing, and Dead Cells is all about combat. Everything else is kind of secondary in the design, and lots of the time it's all about combat actually drove the game in very specific ways. So yeah, Dead Cells, it's a roguelite. We also decided we will not make a roguelike for the very simple reason that we are way more comfortable in doing roguelites based on our free-to-play experience. So our general experience was to make player play again something. So making a roguelite was more meaningful to us. So being a roguelite, it means that the game do features a few things. It does have random levels, obviously. So random levels is kind of a broad topic that we'll talk about right after. It could be basically random platforms, like positioning platforms in the world, but it's also the world layout as a whole. For example, there is a shop in this level, in this world, and there is like a treasure somewhere, and then the exit, but you have a gate and you need a key to open that gate. That's the world layout. Platforms are really the moment-to-moment gameplay. So that's two very different topic for me. Second thing, it's a rogue again, and we have loot. And what would be a rogue without loot, except blueprints maybe? But we do have loot. It means items. It means weapons. That means also treasure and all kind of stuff that you can loot in the game. And third thing, we needed random encounters, basically enemies. We just need to encounter enemies from time to time. A special enemy like an elite, and really from time to time you have a boss fight to test your skills and see if you were doing right. So the game was built upon these three big things, and these three topics were approached in very different ways, as you will see. Let's talk about level design first. Okay. For the platforms, I mean, again, the platforms, ladders, and stuff like that, we decided at first to go for a full random initial approach. We just decided to put platforms kind of randomly. We tried to find a few rules to position them. And you know what? We did spend a few weeks doing that, and the result was really just not interesting. Making a good platformer game like a space of platform is something really difficult, and to make it interesting and feel like it's not total chaos and has some kind of meaning is actually a difficult task. We quickly saw a few very significant issues with the procedural generation on level design. Making a dungeon generator is kind of easy. You have lots of examples on doing that. If you want to just make any kind of top-down dungeon, you can just go back to the basics and go play Rogue. As Michael mentioned, just go play Rogue and you will see a very good and very solid dungeon generation. And you can see lots of them. But if you want to make platformer generation, that's actually way harder, because you have something which is different from top-down. You have gravity. It means that you have jumps, you have distances, and jumping horizontally and vertically and up and down is not symmetric. That means making an interesting level using platforms is actually way, way harder. Also, the very big issue with procgen for us was it's a game, and we need kind of 100% good results. We can afford to have like a platformer level at some point. We can say like 50% of the generated levels are okay and 50 are pure trash. We really needed something where every result was good enough. And that's really, really the complex part. You can make a dungeon generator in 5 minutes, but making a dungeon generator that produces 100% good result, like interesting results, that's probably is a few months of work to make something really interesting in the end. And also, it forced us to define what actually was a good result. We didn't even know. We started working on the generator, but we didn't even know what kind of results that we were looking for on dead cells. And that was a big deal after a few weeks of work. And what are we trying to achieve? We don't know. So we realized something. We realized that it's actually way faster to actually make thousands of rooms by hand than writing an actual generator. And if you just make a small room with a few platforms and ladders, you can actually paint maybe 50 of them in 1 hour, and you will have 50 interesting rooms. With sometimes they will be symmetric, sometimes they will have a specific difficulty in the middle, maybe it will be a long one, L shape or whatever. But it's actually very fast to do that by hand, and it's way faster to do that than a generator. And second thing, making something uncrafted at this point was actually way more had a way better feeling for the player. It actually felt like it was a space that was designed with purpose. So instead of having random platformers, suddenly we had some kind of logic in every single room, some very small twist that actually dictates the positions of every element. This example just shows what a room looks like in Dead Cells. It's basically just platform, one-way platforms, solid walls and ladders, and exits, connections to nearby rooms. You have a few plus and minus signs that basically are random walls, optional walls. Some can be added, some can be removed. So the two ladders on the lower right side can be actually randomly removed from time to time. So yeah, a room doing this type of room was really quick. But it's not something that we want to display in game. So we started working on something different. We started to, the procedural generation will not be platforms. It will actually be the decoration on the platforms. And this part is fully procedural. We do have a kind of a tool which we call the decorator, which basically is some kind of, not AI because that's a bad word now, but some kind of algorithm that paint over walls and just follow the biome rules to decorate this level. So we can turn a very bad looking room into something much nicer and much more interesting. So that's this part is fully procedural. So as you can see, we have this fully uncrafted part, which is drawing the platforms, because that's way faster to do that by hand than writing an actual generator, and the result is way better quality. But painting details like putting tiles on a corner or small details in the environment, that's something that we can totally do automatically. And that also is tied to something very important, that the game is all about combat, as you may remember from me earlier. That means that it's not about exploring the environment, it's not about looking the details in the background, it's really slashing enemies and running around. So having a decent background was good enough for what we were intended to do. And painting a wall like that, I mean, just drawing platforms, ladders, and collision and exits, that's something that took for us 2 to 5 minutes. That's really approximately the time it took for us to just create a new room. So Dead Cells at the beginning, it has about 1K rooms or something, maybe 1.5K, I don't remember. But if you just convert that, that's really just 2 weeks of full time. And I kind of challenge you to build like a decent platform or generator in 2 weeks that produce rooms that don't feel like random. They don't feel like it's completely chaotic. And actually doing that was way more efficient for us, and we could use this developer time to write meaningful algorithm, like painting the walls and painting the backgrounds, connecting platforms with the small details and stuff like that. And another good thing of using this approach is we can totally reuse a room between different biomes. A room is just walls, platforms, one-ways, ladders. So we want to paint this room using the sewer biome algorithm. We can use that in the sewer. But if we want to use the exact same room in the clock tower or what's the name, the courtyard or different spaces, we can just use the exact same room in different space. We just paint it in different ways. And the fun fact, most players did not notice the repetition because it's 1,000 rooms. Most players didn't notice the repetition, and so it kind of did the job for us. So we talked about platform. So platform is moment-to-moment gameplay. It's really ladders, platforms, collisions. That's really the details. But when we think to the larger scope of a level, we talk about biomes or world in Dead Cells. A world is really for us just a very simple tree of nodes. We have, for example, in this node, we have the entrance node on the left, and we have the exit on the right, and we also have a secondary exit in the middle in a branch. And we have a few things in this tree. We have a shop, we have a treasure, we have cursed treasure. Yeah, that's really that. A level in Dead Cells is just that. Then from this point, we just add combat. So we just fill in the gaps by adding combat rooms in the middle, but we don't change general logic. We still have the entrance, a corner that switch to the roof exit. And if you continue, you go to the shop and blah, 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 and so on. But this step, it's just filling the gaps with combat rooms. And that's where the magic happens. How we turn that to an actual level. Remember, we do have like 1,000 rooms in our dictionary. We have rooms for combat, we have exit rooms, we have shop rooms, we have treasure rooms, we have all sorts of rooms in our library of rooms. What we do is very simple. We just start with the entrance and say, okay, we need an entrance. So what kind of entrance room do we have? We just pick one randomly, and we pick any kind of random entrance that suits this space. And then we continue on the tree and see, oh, we need a combat room. So we just pick one combat room among, I don't know, 500. We just pick one and we try to connect it. We try to stuck this room in any way that actually connects we can connect exit and entrances between the two rooms. And we just try randomly all around. And we do that all along the way. And in the end, it actually produces a level. Not exactly. So the thing is, we fail quite a lot of time. And the fun thing, we did start this generator during the prototype phase by making just brute force. We just take a room and we try to fit, and if we manage to find a fit, we just pick another one, and if it overlaps with an existing room, we just roll back and cancel, and we can actually cancel all the way back to the beginning and try to build the level recursively until we actually find magically like a valid layout. And you know what? We actually didn't change a bit. That's something that actually did stay in the game, still is there nowadays. And if you wondered what the loading times in Dead Cells were for, that's basically just a game brute forcing every single possibility to build, to convert a tree to an actual level with collision and rooms. And of course, the folks at Evil Empire did a tremendous, amazing job optimizing that. So we actually are still brute forcing, but we can actually discard like a very obvious will not work things like a loop or stuff like that. But in the end, it still is brute force. And actually, it still is working. And a single level in Dead Cells takes like 5 to 10K tries, sometimes a bit more for a very complex layout like the caverns or specific biomes. But that's really just that. That's brute force. And you know what? It did work, so it still works. And people just don't care about that, and that's okay. That really is okay. We didn't invent all of that. That's something that we drew inspiration from other people. The main one was the YouTube channel GMTK. The guy made a very interesting video about Zelda and how the dungeons in the Zelda were built, the boss keys, the boss keys video. I really, if you are interested in dungeon generation or any kind of level generation, that's a very interesting topic, because that's where we decided to take this idea of just building a very simple tree and then fill in the gap and then turn that into a level. And we also did use DirectQ Spelunky tutorials and guides and a few articles that he did write about how the level generation was done in Spelunky. That helped us a lot on finding ways to connect levels and stuff like that. But that really was a mix of that. Those people. Thank you, guys. So we talked about level design. Now let's talk about loot in Dead Cells. First thing, I did draw on this thing. I did draw inspiration from the Left 4 Dead director logic. In Left 4 Dead, if you remember this game, it's really a survival game with 4 players against zombies, and the game was really kind of new for very different reasons. But one of them was the game was really good at creating situations where suddenly you were like overwhelmed by zombies, and you then followed with a very calm, silent moment until something really bad happened. And it was really dynamic storytelling in some ways through action. And they actually do use, I recommend if you have some time, watch the director videos. They do talk about very interesting things that I do still, to this day, use it a lot in my projects. Something that you should definitely know, but that's something which is kind of very obvious to many people. The random is a lie. When we say that we are making randomly generated level, we don't do randomly generated level. We do random in a controlled way, obviously, but it's still important to remind this. It's not like full random. Full random is not interesting most of the time. It just produces chaotic results, and most of them are like just not interesting to play or to see. When I decided to design the loot director in Dead Cells, I was really interested in making sure that the loot was fair in some way. I'm still interested into like chaotic situations, but I also really want to make sure that the loot is given to the player in a fair way. So if you had like a very bad sequence of bad stroke of luck, you just get trash loot 4 times in a row. I just try to notice that and to make sure that it actually I give you something nice in the 5th tries. A good example of that, the legendary drops. Sorry, I will. It's probably old enough now, but I'm definitely spoiling something in the way Dead Cells do things. But when you get a legendary weapon in Dead Cells, it can actually happen in different way. First, we try to make sure that the legendary fits your build. So we just try to make sure that if you're playing bows, you have a slightly higher chance to get a legendary bow, because that's something that you will be happy for. But if for some reason you don't find the legendary, you just don't notice it in the level, we actually take it back and put it in the next level. We just want to make sure that there was a legendary drop. Maybe you didn't get it, maybe you didn't pick it, or you didn't buy it, whatever. So if you didn't, we actually put it again on your pass to make sure that you will get another one during this run. It's really just an artificial way to make sure that when we want you to get a legendary, it's not about luck and not about random. We want you to get an actual one. And if we have a random legendary drop planned in a specific level, it can actually happen in any given place. If you kill an enemy and we decide, okay, that's a good moment to give you a legendary that was planned in this level, we'll just give it to you by killing this enemy, not in the initial chest it was planned in, for example. And the way I do things again here is I really like to start with a perfectly balanced situation, like a proper amount of gold, exact amount of weapons that you want to drop in the game. Everything is like properly balanced, like just like in a normal game, like a non-randomized game. And then I do add back chaos in more controlled fashion. This way we can, for example, say if we want to produce like a so-called golden run, like a run where you are suddenly super lucky and everything goes really well, that's something that we can actually decide, and we do decide that in that sense. We from time to time say, okay, this run will be a golden run, and that's something that you don't have control on it, so it still feels random, but that's something that happens on purpose, that was decided beforehand. Let's talk about gold, for example. That's a very good example on how things work in that sense.
I was jumping in, Sebastian, to tell you that you're about the end of your time, so I'm so sorry. We can try and wrap up, and then we'll move on to the next one.
Sure. Okay, so let's quickly talk about gold here on that side. We basically do things in upside down manner. So we just drop gold randomly. We decide a total amount of gold at first, and then we decide to make sure that this amount of gold is enough to buy something in this level. Like say we take the most expensive item, we give you 80% of gold corresponding to that price. And we remember that player might have some spare gold from previous levels. And then we randomize this number a bit, and we just spread this total amount of gold around the level. So we put that in chest, then we put that in mobs, and something very important, we don't spread that evenly. We just make stacks of gold. So we don't. If you have 5 enemies, we don't put 1 gold on each of them. Most of them, 4 of them will have nothing, and the 5th one will have a big pile of gold. This way, it's still the same amount of gold, but the feeling is actually different. And we do put some of that in the walls. Sorry. You may see an analogy here. In tabletop RPGs, we do exactly that. We create the illusion that something that was completely random and total mess was actually perfectly intended, like the game master was actually in control and everything was planned in some way. That's really very similar, because in tabletop RPGs, game masters are trying to embrace and simulate chaos at the same time. We just accept that the fact that player will not do what we expected them to do, but we still try to create the illusion that it's actually on purpose. And to me, the perceived experience is more important than the dice results in such situations. So if something good should happen, that we just make it happen. We don't rely on random and wait for it to happen randomly. We just produce. And something, if you have done tabletop RPGs, you probably know that we all cheat. Game master never rely on that. Sometimes we just throw the dice for the sound of the dice, but we don't really use them actually. And that's something that I do in video games when I work on them. I really try to implement this idea. I call that the hidden game master, basically the guy who's in charge. And just like the director in Left 4 Dead, that's the algorithm that observes the game and say, okay, this is a good time to drop something nice. Or maybe that's a good time to drop some gold because the player seems to really lack money and the player is late on the game economy. And the game master idea is making sure that your code is actually tweaking and twisting the random thing to produce more interesting results. I might skip a few things because, as you mentioned, I'm a bit late.
Yes, so I would just extended slides up.
Exactly. I would just do that if you have question on that. So yeah, let's jump quickly to the conclusion here. Again, that's really just my opinion on my way of thinking here, but for me, it's really a matter of balancing complexity of implementing something versus the impact or the efficiency on that. So, for example, building a full random generator with platform organized randomly in a very precise way, it's really very complex to do, but the impact is really low on players. But if you have properly dispatched loot and you have randomized loot everywhere and you make sure that this loot is given in a meaningful fashion, it actually has lots of impact. And this thing is way easier to implement than the actual platform or generator. And for me, it's also about balancing the total randomness of chaos versus the actual fun for players. I think it's really just like a tabletop RPG, it's really about making sure that players feel like it's random, it's pure luck and everything, while actually most of this stuff was under control and was actually done in a very controlled way. And again, I think it's nice, it's a kind of a mindset to say that if you think your tools as the hidden hidden game master watching over the player run. It actually helps you to design these tools in a more efficient way. It's not about building the proper generator for something. It's just making sure that you can actually acknowledge a situation in the game and fix that by dropping something nice or removing a loot, like not exactly random, but to give a very interesting experience. Sorry, I was a bit long on this one, so thanks a lot for your attention. I see you. If you have questions, please feel free.
Yes, thank you so much. And if you want to share the slides and anything like that, we'll make sure to share all those. And
Right.
people can chat later. But yes, thank you so much. Great talk.